My father didn't need to raise his voice when he said it. He never did. Your classes are suspended until you apologize to Noah. The knife paused halfway through my slice. Across the table my brother tried, badly, to hide the grin creeping up his face. My mother looked down at her plate, her breathing uneven, waiting for me to fold. I didn't. I set the knife aside, tucked a loose strand of hair behind my ear, and let the silence settle between us like dust. Fine, I said. No one moved. They heard defeat in my voice. They were wrong. My name is Lucia Hale, and I grew up in a home where quiet traveled faster than anger, where a glance could tell you whether you mattered or not. To everyone else we were polished, orderly, enviably stable. Inside, everything revolved around one person, my younger brother Noah. My father, Grant, valued order above fairness. He loved lists taped to the fridge, rigid schedules, rules he could point to like scripture. My mother, Elise, loved calm more than honesty. She patched tension like someone patching a cracked window. Quickly, desperately, even if the fix never held. I learned my place early. Not through shouting, but through tiny moments that fitted together into an unspoken role. When I was 10, Grant taught Noah to ride a bike in the cul-de-sac while I sat on the curb with my helmet buckled, waiting. Noah fell twice. My bike never left the grass. Next weekend, Grant promised. Next weekend never came. At 12, Elise bought Noah a brand new jacket for picture day. She handed me an old scarf of hers and said it made me look mature. I wore it even though it smelled like detergent and old lavender. Later, when Noah spilled juice on his cuff, she cried. When the bus tore a hole in my scarf, she didn't notice. Small things. Throwaway things. Except they didn't throw away, they collected. By 14, I'd become the family's designated fixer. When Noah forgot his project, I gave him mine to copy. When he lagged in science, I stayed up explaining experiments while he played on his phone. Grant praised Noah for working hard. My help evaporated into the background like steam on a mirror. The first time I truly saw the cost of this imbalance was the day I stayed late for debate practice. I had just been named captain for regionals, and I floated toward the parking lot, practically weightless. Then Grant's car pulled up. Not for me but for Noah. He ran out crying, claiming he'd been picked on. Grant didn't even glance my way before driving off with him. I stood there with the news of my achievement cooling in my hands. But everything crystallized one winter afternoon in the dim school garage. Under a flickering yellow light, I saw Noah pin a smaller student, Ryan, a quiet kid from my math class, against a concrete pillar. First I froze. Then when Noah shoved him hard enough to knock him to the ground, I stepped in instinctively. At home, Elise brushed it off with boys will be boys. Grant warned me not to make things bigger than they are. And Noah smiled like he had gotten away with a prank. That was the moment I finally understood the script. Noah created the wreckage. I was expected to sweep the floor. So when the night came that everything tipped, it wasn't dramatic. My family never operated with noise. Midway through dinner, Grant dabbed his mouth with a napkin and spoke as if delivering a company memo. You'll stand on the auditorium stage tomorrow and apologize to Noah. School-wide. Clear. Across from me, Noah kept his eyes lowered, but the smug curl of his mouth betrayed him. Elise folded her hands as if preparing for impact. They didn't ask what happened. They didn't mention the camera footage. They didn't care that the video showed Noah shoving Ryan so hard the kid hit concrete. Family stays together, Elise murmured, her voice trembling the way it did when she tried to guilt me into compliance. It's simple, Grant added. One apology and this whole thing disappears. But it wasn't simple. It had never been simple. They wanted me to stand under the lights and rewrite the truth, to claim Noah had defended himself, because the lie kept the house steady, because my integrity weighed less than Noah's reputation. So you want me to lie? I asked softly. Grant shook his head. I want you to be responsible. Responsible. A word they stretched to cover whatever they needed me to carry. Noah finally looked at me, eyes bright, almost eager. Just do it, Lucia. It's not that serious. Strangely, I felt calm. The clink of silverware, the hum of the kitchen light, the smell of cooling vegetables. Everything felt distant. I wasn't angry. I was clear. I tucked a strand of hair behind my ear, an old habit, and something inside me shifted, quiet and irreversible. All right, I said. The word hit the table like a dropped coin. Noah's smirk faltered. Elise blinked. Grant looked ready to continue lecturing, but nothing came out. They thought I had given in. They didn't realize that was the exact moment I stopped following their script. I went upstairs without another word. No slamming, no stomping, no scene. Only the barely there click of the door closing behind me. Would meeting with like a whispered decision. It was the quietest line I had ever drawn, so quiet no one downstairs even paused. I stayed still for a moment, letting the hush settle around me. The house breathed in uneven rhythms. Voices drifted up in a jumbled blur. But I let them fade into nothing. I crossed to my desk, flipped open my laptop and woke the screen. White light spilled over the room. Steady, clean, like a beginning that hadn't been written yet. I opened a fresh note and started listing what I needed. Transcript. Letters. Videos. Requirements. Deadlines. The rhythm of typing steadied the shaking in my chest. Each keystroke felt like a choice I'd never been allowed to make before. I dragged out my 2 suitcases from under the bed. One for clothes, one for proof that I had a life beyond the walls of this house. Debate medals. Award certificates. Patches I'd stitched onto jackets that still smelled faintly of old auditoriums. I arranged everything on the carpet in ordered rows. Sorting them felt like reclaiming myself piece by piece. The hallway creaked. Someone lingered outside my room for a heartbeat, then kept walking. I didn't move toward the door. Instead, I sent a text to the one person who had never once tried to shrink me. Maya, it's happening. Her reply came instantly, no matter the hour. Tell me what you need. I didn't know how to describe the feeling. Something inside opening instead of closing. But I typed the next steps anyway. She sent instructions, reminders, links. Each message was like a small, reliable light cutting through the dark. After midnight, I crept downstairs for printer paper, moving quietly across the cold tile. I kept the lights off. The house was still awake enough to notice the wrong sound, so I gave it nothing. Back upstairs, I downloaded the garage video from the school portal. Ryan's terrified expression, Noah's fist, the way he shoved him into the pillar. The footage didn't lie, even if the people I lived with needed me to. I saved it twice, once properly, once under a coded name inside a hidden folder. Not to ruin Noah. Not to expose him. But because telling the truth had become a way to stay alive. Around 2 in the morning my laptop chimed. My counselor had replied. Lucia, if you're awake, send me your draft. I'll look at it now. Don't wait. Her message wasn't soft. It was better, solid, practical, no-nonsense support, the kind I'd never gotten at home. I finished my essay, each sentence a steady act of taking my story back, and hit send. While waiting, I packed my backpack with everything I needed for the next day. Sealed envelopes, pre-signed forms, printed documents. I checked them 3 times, tapping the edges to line them up perfectly. Order made the impossible feel manageable. At 2:43 a.m. her reply arrived. Looks excellent. I'll finalize the recommendation tonight. Stay focused. You're close. I exhaled without realizing I'd been holding my breath for hours. By sunrise, my room looked like a carefully arranged blueprint of my future. 2 suitcases zipped. Clothes folded. Papers aligned in neat grids across my desk. My laptop shut, the charger wrapped carefully. My notebook open to a list with every box marked off. When the house finally settled into early morning quiet, I moved through my routine shower, jeans, sweater, shoes, every motion calm, deliberate. Not sneaking. Not rushing. Just moving with intention. I got to school long before the crowds. The air outside was sharp, metallic. The sky held a rim of pink. I tied my hair back, feeling a faint tremble of anticipation. My locker sat halfway down the east hall, catching the first light pouring through the courtyard windows. I opened it and stared at the small world I had kept inside. Textbooks arranged neatly, a photo strip from a debate team party, the chipped mug Maya had given me with a fading quote about perseverance. Slowly I cleared it all out. Books into my backpack. Personal things into a separate tote. The photo strip folded and tucked into my notebook. When the locker was completely empty, its metal interior seemed to sigh, like it had been holding its breath too. I tore out the transfer approval sheet, taped it inside the locker and left it hanging there. A quiet announcement. By the time the first bell rang, I was already walking away. Students drifted in behind me, noise rising like a tide. I didn't look back. The plan was in motion. The The paperwork done. The path mine alone. Stepping into the crisp morning air outside. A truth rose up inside me, gentle but firm. I wasn't going to hold their world together anymore. This time I would build one of my own. The next morning the school roared awake. Lockers clanged. Shoes squeaked on polished floors. Voices bounced around the halls like the building had been storing them up all night. I walked in slowly, the chill clinging to my sleeves. My hair was tied back. My steps steady. Nothing in my expression hinted at what was coming. Noah was already by his locker when I turned the corner. My younger brother, the one gravity always seemed to favor, stood with his arms folded, smirk practiced and sharp. "Well," he said, loud enough for the nearby crowd. "Look who finally showed up. Ready to practice your apology." I kept walking. I didn't even give him a glance. I went straight to my locker, spun the dial and opened it. His smirk shattered instantly. It was empty. Completely stripped. Only the transfer approval form remained, taped neatly inside, fluttering once in the hallway draft. I hoisted my backpack onto one shoulder and nudged the locker shut, letting the latch settle with a neat click. A sharp inhale behind me. A whisper. "Is she leaving?" Then Noah's voice cut through the hallway, brittle and breaking. "Lucia, what did you do?" I didn't slow down. He caught my arm anyway, fingers tight with panic. "Please tell me you didn't submit it," he begged, voice shaking. "Please tell me it's not real." People stopped walking. Phones angled toward us. Noah had never looked so unraveled. I slipped my arm from his grip with a small twist. For a heartbeat, the hall held perfectly still. "Submitted what?" I asked. He swallowed, eyes darting. "The transfer. The scholarship. Anything. Just say it's not final." But he already knew the answer. I didn't give him one. My footsteps carried me toward the main office, steady while his followed in frantic, uneven echoes. Principal Alden was already behind his desk when I arrived. Calm, clinical, impossible to shake. Ms. Rivera, my counselor, stood beside him with a sealed envelope pressed between her hands. When she saw me, she gave a single nod, not approval but confirmation. I handed over the last of the paperwork. She scanned it, checked the signatures, then passed everything to Alden. He read the top page aloud, his voice filling the small room. "Full academic award. Residential placement approved. Transfer effective immediately." A sharp breath sounded behind me. "Noah." The door swung open and my parents rushed in. Grant's tie was crooked, a first. Elise looked wrecked, eyes swollen, hands shaking around her phone. "What is happening?" Grant demanded. Ms. Rivera set the contract in front of him. "The process is complete. She met every requirement. The academy confirmed her acceptance last night." Grant's jaw tightened. "Lucia, we never agreed to this." Before I could speak, Alden did. "Your consent wasn't necessary." Silence fell like a weight. My phone buzzed. I put it on speaker. "Good morning, Lucia," came Mr. Rowan's calm voice, the academy's representative. "I'm confirming arrival for tomorrow at 7. You'll be transported to campus. All arrangements are finalized." Grant stepped forward. "You can't just take my daughter." Mr. Rowan cut in, polite but immovable. "She is nearly 18 and attending on scholarship. The transition is within policy. Any obstruction will be recorded." The room froze. Noah was the first to break. "Dad, stop." His voice sounded small. "It's done." Elise covered her mouth, tears slipping down her cheeks. I ended the call, put my phone away and walked out. Students crowded the hallway, clearing a path, whispering as I passed. I didn't look back. Not at my parents, not at Noah, not at the version of life I had been expected to keep holding together. My footsteps echoed, precise, calm, final. The next morning in Washington, D.C., the air felt different, steady, crisp, untouched. The shuttle dropped me at the academy gates just as sunlight brushed the glass buildings with soft gold. I stepped out with both suitcases, wheels ticking softly against the pavement. No shouting, no frantic questions, no rules pinned to a refrigerator. Just space. The dorm smelled of fresh paint and clean linen. My new room was small and bright, quiet in a way that felt like relief. I opened the window and let the early breeze sweep through. My lungs opened with it. Classes began quickly, debate, political theory, research labs. Here, no one waited for me to shrink or stumble. When I raised my hand, people listened. When I spoke, no one sighed or dismissed me. The world didn't lean toward a golden boy. It stayed balanced. In the library, sunlight filtered through tall windows, stretching across long wooden tables like a slow warmth. I spread out my notes, clicked my pen twice, and felt the quiet settle around me. Not the suffocating hush of home. This one felt chosen. My phone buzzed in my pocket, a Maryland number lighting the screen. I let it ring. Then again. Then nothing. I turned the phone face down and shut it off. After dinner, I wandered the campus path lined with small lamps blinking like tiny fireflies. Students laughed nearby. Others studied in the grass. Someone jogged past with earbuds. Simple moments. Gentle ones. A life that didn't demand I break myself to keep peace. Back in my room, the desk lamp cast a soft glow over an empty notebook. I sat, smoothed the new pages, and felt steadiness in my fingertips. The last day had reshaped everything. Not through chaos, but through a quiet, deliberate shift. I wasn't escaping them. I was choosing me, choosing a life that finally belonged to me. Some families teach loyalty. Mine taught the boundary where loyalty ends. The day they tried to confine my future was the day I set my exit in motion, quiet, clean, without turning around. Not all doors slam shut. Some close with a breath, a decision, a single step forward. And freedom, I learned, doesn't need to be loud. If this story reached you, stay close. There's more ahead.